Every moment you spend paralyzed by the fear of failure, someone else is out there claiming the life you want. Someone with half your talent, half your intelligence, half your potential, but double your courage. They're becoming wealthy from your business idea. They're receiving praise for your creative vision. They're building the relationships you dream about. And what's killing you inside isn't that they're succeeding. It's that deep down, you know that could have been you. Today I'm going to show you how to get rid of the fear that's been ruining your potential. Because your fear of failure isn't protecting you from pain, it's protecting you from becoming who you're meant to be. The fear of failure is the silent assassin of greatness. It doesn't announce itself with sirens and flashing lights. It whispers. It rationalizes. It creates perfectly reasonable excuses for why now isn't the right time, why you're not quite ready, why the conditions aren't perfect. And you listen, because it sounds so logical, so sensible. But make no mistake, this voice isn't your friend. It's the jailer that's kept you imprisoned in mediocrity. It's the thief that's stolen your dreams. It's the saboteur that ensures you'll never discover what you're truly capable of. Today, that ends. We're not just going to face this fear, we're going to delete it from your operating system entirely. We're going to replace it with something far more powerful, the understanding that failure isn't something to fear, it's something to harness. Your fear of failure isn't based on reality, it's based on a story you've been telling yourself for so long that you've forgotten it's fiction. When you imagine failure, your mind doesn't create a rational assessment of what might happen. It creates a catastrophic fantasy where one setback cascades into complete devastation, where a single rejection means you're fundamentally unworthy, where a momentary stumble becomes a permanent fall. Your brain doesn't distinguish between actual threats and imagined ones. That's why just thinking about failing can trigger the same physiological stress response as if your life were in danger. Racing heart, shallow breathing, mental paralysis. Your body is preparing to fight or flee from a threat that exists only in your imagination. This fear isn't protecting you from actual danger, it's protecting you from growth. It's keeping you trapped in a cage of your own making, because growth requires risk, and risk triggers fear. The most insidious part: this fear disguises itself as wisdom. It masquerades as self-protection. It presents itself as the voice of reason saying, "Be realistic, don't set yourself up for disappointment, stay where it's safe." But safety is an illusion. Because while you're hiding from potential failure, life is passing you by. Opportunities are evaporating. Your potential is withering. And that's not speculation. That's happening right now, in real time, with every moment you surrender to fear. Your fear isn't saving you from failure. It's guaranteeing it. Society has programmed you with a fundamentally flawed definition of failure. You've been taught that failure is an event that happens to you, a judgment, a verdict, a final pronouncement on your worth and abilities. This definition is not just wrong, it's poison. And as long as you accept it, you'll remain paralyzed. Failure isn't an event. It's not a moment in time. It's not a result or an outcome. Failure is giving up. Failure is surrendering to doubt. Failure is allowing fear to make your decisions. Everything else is simply feedback. When Thomas Edison was asked about his 10,000 failed attempts at creating the light bulb, he said, "I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This isn't positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. It's the mindset that separates those who achieve greatness from those who merely dream about it. The moment you shift your definition of failure from negative outcome to valuable feedback, everything changes. What was once a threat becomes a tool. What was once something to be avoided at all costs becomes something to be collected and leveraged. This redefinition isn't semantic games, it's a fundamental rewiring of how you process experience. It's the difference between seeing a rejection letter as evidence of your inadequacy and seeing it as data that refines your approach. It's the difference between viewing criticism as an attack and viewing it as information that improves your work. Your relationship with failure determines your ceiling in life. People who fear failure create small lives designed to minimize risk. People who redefine failure create expansive lives designed for growth. The question isn't whether you'll experience setbacks. You will. The question is what meaning you'll assign to them. Will they be evidence of your limitations or stepping stones to your evolution? Your fear of failure thrives in imagination but dies in exposure. The most powerful way to delete this fear is to deliberately seek small failures and document the gap between what you feared would happen and what actually happened. Think about it. What's the worst rejection you've ever experienced? The harshest criticism? The most humiliating public mistake? Now answer honestly. Did it kill you? Did it permanently destroy your reputation? Did it make success forever impossible? Of course not. Yet your fear acts as if these outcomes are not just possible, but probable. This disconnect between fear's predictions and reality's outcomes is your most powerful weapon against fear itself. Start intentionally collecting what I call productive failures. Small, strategic risks, where the potential downside is limited but the fear is real. Apply for that position even if you're not fully qualified. Share that creative work even if it's not perfect. Voice that opinion even if it might be challenged. With each exposure, document 3 things: what you feared would happen, what actually happened, and what you learned. This evidence-gathering process forces your brain to update its threat assessment. When you repeatedly see that rejection doesn't destroy you, that criticism doesn't define you, that setbacks don't derail you, your fear loses its grip. This isn't about eliminating discomfort, it's about building tolerance for it. It's about developing the capacity to feel fear without being controlled by it. This is the essence of courage, and courage, unlike fear, expands with use. Remember, your comfort zone is not a place to live, it's a place to visit occasionally. Every significant growth, every meaningful achievement, every profound connection exists beyond its borders. And the only way to expand those borders is to step beyond them, repeatedly and deliberately. Elite performers don't just accept failure, they systematize how they process it. They transform what derails others into fuel for their journey. Your failure processing system needs 3 components: emotional processing, strategic extraction, and immediate redirection. For emotional processing, create immediate separation between outcome and identity. When you experience a setback, explicitly state, "This outcome doesn't reflect my worth or my potential. It's information, not indictment." This isn't empty affirmation. It's neurological reprogramming that prevents a single event from hijacking your entire self-concept. For strategic extraction, ask precise questions. What specifically didn't work? What specifically did work? What one change would create the biggest improvement? Document these insights with ruthless honesty. This transforms failure from punishment into education. For immediate redirection, establish a non-negotiable next action before the failure even occurs. Decide in advance, if this doesn't work, what's my next move? This prevents the paralysis that typically follows disappointment and maintains momentum through setbacks. This system doesn't just help you recover from failure, it makes failure valuable. It transforms what would be emotional waste into intellectual wealth. It ensures that every setback moves you forward rather than knocking you backward. NBA legend Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player ever, said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Jordan's greatness wasn't just his physical gifts. It was his ability to process failure as information rather than identity. To extract value from what most would discard as worthless. To redirect immediately rather than languish in disappointment. This isn't just a sports principle, it's a life principle. Those who succeed at the highest levels aren't those who fail less. They're those who process failure differently. Fear and curiosity cannot coexist in the same mental space. They're opposing forces competing for the same neural resources. Fear narrows focus. Curiosity expands it. Fear fixates on self-protection. Curiosity engages with possibilities. When you feel that familiar fear of failure rising, immediately redirect with questions that ignite curiosity. What might I discover through this challenge? What skills might I develop? What would this look like if it were easy? What would I attempt if failure wasn't even a concept? This isn't positive thinking. It's strategic mental redirection. Curiosity activates different neural networks than fear, creating a biological interrupt to anxiety spirals. Curiosity also creates psychological distance between you and potential outcomes. Instead of being fully identified with results, you become an interested observer of your own journey. This perspective allows you to engage with challenges without being consumed by them. The next time fear tells you all the ways something could go wrong, respond with curiosity about all the ways it could go right, or the unexpected directions it might lead. The next time fear says, "You'll fail," respond with, "Maybe, and I'm curious what I'll learn if I do." This mental stance doesn't just make failure less threatening, it makes the entire journey more engaging. You move from defending against potential loss to exploring potential discovery. From victim of circumstance to navigator of experience. Deleting the fear of failure isn't about never feeling afraid. It's about preventing that fear from making your decisions. It's about recognizing that the pain of remaining stagnant is far greater than the pain of growth. The question isn't whether you'll fail, you will, we all do. The question is what those failures will mean to you. Will they be evidence of your inadequacy or stepping stones to your evolution? Will they be endings or beginnings? The most tragic failure isn't stumbling as you climb toward your dreams. The most tragic failure is never starting the climb at all. It's reaching the end of your life and meeting the ghost of who you could have become if fear hadn't held you back. Every great achievement, every breakthrough, every life transformed began with someone willing to risk failure. Not because they were fearless, but because they refused to let fear be the author of their story. So what would you do if you knew failure wasn't fatal but informative? What would you create, attempt, or pursue if you saw failure not as your enemy but as your teacher? Delete the fear. Write the book. Start the business. Have the conversation. Take the chance. Your future self is banking on your courage today. If this message struck a chord with you, hit subscribe to join our community of people committed to breaking through limitations. Drop a comment about what you're going to attempt now that you're deleting the fear of failure. I read every single comment. Remember, on the other side of your fear is everything you've been waiting for.